All right, so today we are going to dive deep, really deep, into something super intriguing,
Okay, I'm game.
and that is loving your enemies.
Oh, wow.
And we actually have some excerpts from a text that we're going to be looking at called Loving Your Enemies in Daily Life. Practical examples.
I like it. Practical.
Exactly.
That's what we need.
I'm so curious to see, like, we hear love your enemies, and it sounds good. It sounds like something we should all do.
Yeah, it's very abstract.
Yeah, it's very abstract, and but I'm curious to see how this actually plays out in real life. How we can go beyond those, like, just feel good sentiments and put it into practice.
Well, I think that's what's so fascinating about this text,
Yeah.
is that it does get into the nitty-gritty of how to apply this principle in very specific situations.
Yeah.
So, for example, we've got everything from, workplace conflicts to family dynamics.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've all been in those situations where someone just rubs us the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Big time.
Like, whether it's a coworker or, I don't know, somebody cuts you off in traffic,
Oh, yeah.
our gut reaction is usually anything but, loving.
Right. Absolutely.
So how do we bridge that gap? Like, how do we go from that like immediate reaction, that anger or frustration, to a place of like genuine care and love? And it seems like this text actually has some like surprisingly practical advice.
It really does. And I think one of the places it starts is really emphasizing this idea of, loving your enemies and doing good to those who hate you.
Okay.
So let's take a very common workplace scenario, for instance.
Okay.
And we all know this one.
Okay, I'm ready.
We've either experienced it or seen it.
Yes.
You've got a coworker who is constantly undermining you.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they're spreading rumors about you, taking credit for your ideas.
I can feel my blood pressure rising just thinking about this.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's so frustrating.
My instinct in those situations is to like, either get defensive or, fire back.
Yeah.
But this text suggests something completely different.
It does. It actually suggests continued kindness and professionalism,
Oh, wow.
even offering help to that coworker.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, that might seem so counterintuitive,
It is.
right? Like, why would I want to be nice to someone who's treating me so poorly?
Well, and that's the real challenge here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because our human nature is to to kind of go, tit for tat. Like if you're going to be mean to me, I'm going to be mean back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But think about the potential impact of responding with kindness instead.
I guess it can catch them off guard.
Right.
It could maybe even make them question their own assumptions about you. Like, is that what the text is getting at?
I think so. I think it's about strategically disrupting that negative cycle.
Okay.
It's not about being a pushover, right?
Yeah.
It's about choosing a response that could ultimately shift the whole dynamic.
Okay, so it's almost like you're taking the high road, but you're also like subtly challenging their behavior at the same time.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, okay. That's a really interesting perspective. Now, how about applying this to family relationships?
Ooh, yes.
Because I think that can be even trickier.
Way trickier.
Sometimes, like, let's say you have that relative, we all have that one relative who's just like constantly critical.
Right.
No matter what you do, no matter what you say.
Right.
It's how do you deal with that in a loving way?
Well, the text actually addresses this head on.
Okay.
And it suggests that instead of getting drawn into those arguments, those endless back and forths.
Which is so easy to do, by the way.
Oh, so easy.
Like to get sucked into that.
Absolutely. But the text says, respond with patience and kindness, maybe even offer help.
Okay, but what if their behavior is just like intentionally hurtful?
Yeah.
Like, what if they're just like, being mean to be mean?
Right.
Is there a point where you need to set boundaries?
That is such a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think we have to keep in mind throughout this whole conversation.
Sure.
Which is that, loving your enemies, it doesn't mean tolerating abuse.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's about choosing a higher response, but that doesn't negate the need for self-preservation.
Right.
Sometimes the most loving act is to distance yourself from a toxic situation,
Okay.
to set those boundaries.
So it's about discernment, like understanding like, okay, when do these principles apply and when might other actions be necessary?
Yes, absolutely. Discernment is key.
Okay.
And you brought up a good point
Yeah.
about boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's going to come back up as we talk.
Okay.
But that's a really important point.
Now, this next part of the text really caught my eye because I feel like it's so relevant, especially in the age of social media where, negativity can just like run rampant.
Yeah, totally.
And it says, blessing those who curse you and praying for those who mistreat you.
Yeah.
Like, wow. So think about it. Someone posted a nasty comment about you online,
Oh, been there.
right?
Yeah,
Your instinct, and my instinct, probably a lot of people's instinct, is to fire back,
for sure.
to get defensive, to try to, win the argument.
Right.
But this text suggests something radically different, which is to respond with kindness, or even to pray for their well-being.
I mean, I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but I'm not there yet.
Honestly, I struggle with that too.
Yeah,
It's so tempting to engage,
totally.
but I'm curious from like a psychological perspective, what's the impact of choosing not to mirror that negativity?
Well, first of all, it's a powerful act of self-control.
Okay.
Right. I mean, because we have these impulses and we're actively choosing not to act on them.
Yeah.
And I think it can be really quite liberating.
Okay.
Because you're essentially saying, I'm not going to let your negativity dictate my emotional state.
Right.
Right? You're breaking free from that cycle of, negativity feeding negativity.
That's a really insightful point. It's like you're reclaiming your own power by choosing how you respond.
Absolutely. You're not giving them control over you.
Right.
You're taking back control of your own emotions and your own well-being.
Okay, now this idea of turning the other cheek, it kind of shows up again when the text talks about dealing with everyday annoyances.
Totally.
Like someone cuts you off in traffic or, yells at you in line. Those moments where it's just so easy to get riled up.
I mean, who hasn't been there?
Right.
Right.
And the text is very clear. Take a deep breath, let it go, choose patience over retaliation.
It's almost like that old adage, sticks and stones may break my bones,
Right.
but names will never hurt me.
But I can see how this really hangs into, this bigger picture of de-escalation.
Totally.
Like if you don't engage in that negative back and forth, you're breaking the chain.
You're stopping it in its tracks.
But how realistic is this?
Right.
Like, I mean, letting go of anger, and choosing kindness in the heat of the moment. I mean, that takes a lot of practice, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Right.
But it's a skill worth cultivating.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the ripple effect, right?
Okay.
If you choose kindness in a heated moment, you may just diffuse the whole situation.
Right.
Right? You might prevent it from escalating into something even worse.
I hadn't thought of it that way. It's like you're modeling a different way of being, even in like a small interaction.
Absolutely.
Okay, this next part of the text was really challenging for me because it says giving freely without expecting anything in return.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right. And it uses examples like, helping a homeless person without judgment.
Yeah.
Or lending money to a friend without focusing on repayment.
Right.
I mean, this is a radical concept, isn't it?
It is.
It challenges like our deeply ingrained ideas of reciprocity and fairness.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of conditioned from a young age to think, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Right, exactly.
Quid pro quo.
And this is saying something completely different.
Yeah.
It makes me think about the motivations behind our actions.
Absolutely.
Like are we truly giving freely, or are we expecting something in return?
Right.
Even subconsciously.
Even subconsciously.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, are we doing it to look good? Are we doing it to feel good about ourselves? Are we doing it to get something back later?
Right.
Those are all valid questions to ask ourselves.
And that's the heart of it, isn't it? It's about, the text emphasizes this, the importance of a pure motive.
Right.
A genuine desire to help without any strings attached.
And that's hard.
It's hard.
That's really hard.
It's a high bar, for sure.
Yeah.
But I can see how it ties into this overall theme of loving your enemies.
Totally.
It's about transcending those transactional ways of relating to people.
Yeah. I mean, it's about recognizing the inherent worth of every individual,
Right?
regardless of their actions or how they treat us.
That's a powerful thought.
It is. It is.
Now, the text also talks about the golden rule.
Oh, yeah. A classic.
Doing to others as you would have them do to you.
Right.
It seems like such a simple concept.
It does.
Right.
But how often do we really live by it?
Yeah.
It's easy to say, but it's hard to do.
Yeah. How often do we actually put it into practice? The text applies this to customer service. Like urging us to treat workers with respect and patience, even when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, we've all been on the receiving end of frustrating service.
Oh, absolutely. I've been that customer.
Right.
getting impatient.
So it's a good reminder to flip the script
Yeah,
and think about how we would want to be treated in that situation.
absolutely. I mean, put yourself in their shoes for a minute.
Yeah. And this principle can apply to so many other areas of life too.
Oh, totally.
Like if a colleague forgets to do something important, instead of blaming them, you step in and help fix it.
Yeah, be part of the solution, not the problem.
Exactly. It's about creating that culture of support and understanding.
Right, in the workplace and in our personal relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this next part really resonates with me. Forgiveness and not judging.
Ooh, those are big ones.
Yeah. And the text talks about, forgiving a friend who lets you down,
Yeah.
choosing to move on instead of holding a grudge.
I mean, think about it. Holding on to anger and resentment, who does that really hurt?
Yeah.
It hurts us.
Yeah, it hurts us more than anyone else.
It eats us up inside. It poisons our relationships. It prevents us from moving forward.
It's so true. Forgiveness, I mean, it's a powerful act of self-healing.
Absolutely. It's for us as much as it is for the other person.
And it's not just about letting go of anger. It's also about choosing to see the best in people,
Right.
even when they make mistakes.
Even when they screw up. Because guess what? We all screw up.
We all do. And that leads into the idea of not judging, which the text highlights the importance of this in parenting.
Oh, yeah.
When a child makes a mistake,
Yeah.
the goal is to discipline with love and understanding.
Right. To encourage growth rather than shame.
Right.
To help them learn from their mistakes.
It's about creating a space for learning and growth, both for ourselves and for others.
Exactly. And the more we can do that, the more grace we can extend to ourselves and to others.
Yeah.
The better off we'll all be.
And finally, the text ends with this call to give generously,
Yes.
whether that's, supporting a cause without needing recognition,
Yeah.
or sharing resources with someone in need.
Right.
These are acts of selfless love,
They are.
a testament to the belief that there's always enough to go around.
And that abundance flows both ways.
So we've explored a lot today,
We have.
from dealing with difficult coworkers to, navigating challenging family dynamics,
Yeah.
and even extending kindness to strangers.
Yeah.
And it's clear that loving your enemies it's more than just a nice sentiment.
It is.
It's a way of life. It's a conscious choice we make moment by moment.
And it's a challenging path, but it's ultimately a very rewarding one.
Yeah.
It's a path that has the potential to transform our relationships
Yeah.
and bring more peace into the world.
And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
here's a question to ponder.
Okay, I'm ready.
What's one small act of loving your enemy that you can commit to this week? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture,
Yeah.
just a small step in the direction of kindness and compassion.
Love it.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration.
Always a pleasure.